Welcome in to another edition of the Cavalier Connection. I'm Jeff, joined by Jay. How you doing tonight, Jay?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Doing all right. You should be thrilled after watching the intro video that time. Did you
I
watch
didn't
it?
watch it. Did I miss it? Did I miss something?
Oh boy, he's got to go back and watch tomorrow. As I did something with the Jay
Oh
Ballard
man,
picture.
Jeff, you should have
Um,
told me before. I'd kind of zoned out. I was
I
thinking
just
about the
wanted the
great guest we
honest.
have
I
tonight,
wanted. I wanted the honest reaction.
and you
Now he's
didn't
got to.
get it.
Now he's got to tune in tomorrow. Listen, when we do things on this show, we are to watch it. We're trying to be better. You didn't even look at yourself.
And I did not.
Oh, good
I did
Lord.
not. I wish I'd have known.
Oh man, it's big time. You'll be thrilled. You'll be thrilled with the new Jay Ballard on there.
Oh, okay.
But
Is
yeah,
it the
welcome
AI
in.
version? Because that was even worse.
That's the best version of all time. If you go on to Chat GPT and try to get them to help you out, make an AI version of the show here, it's comical, very comical. Also, if you go on there and ask them to roast the Cavalier Connection, which I did, they roasted us pretty good, and I actually they were spot on me, and so I'll try to work on a few of those things. I know I've been told by Chat GPT you don't give a crap about my stories from 1995, and I will not insert myself in to the conversation any
I think you're
longer.
doing that right now, Jeff. You're inserting yourself right now.
Man, I
I
did it
mean, be
again.
better. Be better.
I did it again. Just because I came at you over not watching the intro, don't come back at me. Who's tonight? We got an exciting episode with Hootie and Jerry Radcliffe. So looking forward to talking to him. And before we get to that, we did want to talk about this week's Mincers moment. We wanted to share some photos. This past weekend on Sunday, they did Meet the Team Day, which was pretty cool for all the kids. And just going to share some of those images. You see Virginia getting into the community, and I know seeing some of the ideas they've had for fan engagement, bringing the schools in this season and things like that. And this is a pretty cool event when you're able to get these kids in. We're just going to show some images, big smiles, representing the program well, the kids. Just a great picture here. Tony Elliott signing or giving a football. I'm sure he's signing that football for that young man.
All good stuff there.
Look
Big
at that helmet.
smiles. Yeah.
That helmet's cool as crap.
Oh, yeah.
We need that in our background.
Absolutely.
So we love it. Shout out to Virginia for doing that and signing those. And I'll show my boy here, Maceo Harrison. I'm going to give you a piece of the award this week, coming out with the picture of yourself and Coach Elliott there at Meet the Team Day. So he says he's picked us up some of those posters.
Oh, sweet.
So I haven't picked it up yet.
Yeah, hopefully next year we can make it out there for it.
Yeah,
for that
for sure. But just an awesome event for the kids, and it represents the community of Charlottesville just as Mincers does and has since 1948. And when we were kids, here I go again, but I'm gonna do it again. Jay, if they had offered this to us when we were kids, think about that.
Oh my. It was kind of like the Midnight Madness, except you didn't have to wait till midnight. And you actually got to meet the players, not just see them do something.
We didn't get to meet the players.
Yeah, we didn't get to meet the players. We had to go to the William and Mary football game to meet the basketball players in the
yeah. So shout out
in the concourse.
Shout out Virginia for doing that. George Welsh, my favorite, of course, football coach of all time, and but he didn't pull this one off. Yeah, I can't picture George Welsh at the fan day.
Great. We need Ball Hawk. Give us a good impersonation when he's here.
No question. Great day this past Sunday, and a great representation of our friends over at Mincers. All right, folks, and you know him as a Hall of Fame journalist, the voice and pen behind the decades of coverage of UVA sports, and one of the most respected names in the business, Jerry Radcliffe. Jerry, I know you've seen it all when it comes to Wahoo Athletics, and we are thrilled to have you on tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Jay and Jeff, and you're right. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we're hoping for some good this time around, right?
That's right.
That's
That's
right.
right.
That's
I'm
right.
feeling pretty good. So what would you say is the single biggest storyline heading into this season?
Well, I thought prior to camp that the biggest challenge would be getting 54 new faces all on the same page. I thought that was going to be a big challenge for the coaching staff, and but I think they've negotiated that pretty well. They seem to uh, have overcome all the terminology obstacles and all the different techniques and methods that they've picked up other places and uh, adhered them to Virginia's way. But other than that, when you get down to personnel, I thought one major thing was going to be the offensive line with the influx of all that talent and depth. Maybe the most depth they've ever had overall in this program ever. Um, if those guys are as good as advertised, and can they work as an effective unit and actually dominate and control the line of scrimmage like some Virginia offensive lines in the past. But I thought that was going to be the big storyline as far as personnel, and if Chandler Morris was as good as advertised and everything we hear he is. We haven't got to see a whole lot of him. They throw the media out of practice when it gets serious over there. But and then if Rudzinski can mold those guys together and bring in a formidable attacking defense like he had that first year he was here and really put pressure on people because they've just been terrible in pass rush and putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks the last 2 years. Yeah. And so I thought those were the big storylines.
Yeah. So I know that the word consistency has kind of been a theme from the coaching staff this offseason. From what you've heard and observed, does this team seem closer to achieving that than some of the groups in the past?
Yeah, I think so, Jeff. And a lot of it is probably because of experience and depth. I had a friend who's a defensive coordinator in the Big 12 now. He used to be in the ACC, and he's been all over the country at places like Georgia and worked for the Dallas Cowboys. And when he was in the ACC, this was probably back in the late Mike London days. And I was talking to him. I said, just tell me about Virginia, your impressions of Virginia. And he said, well, I think Virginia has some really nice players. I think a lot of their first team guys can play with anybody in the league. But when they get injuries and that sort of thing, there's a major drop off. They just don't have any playable depth, any quality depth. And I think that's something that's haunted the program throughout the London and even some of the Mendenhall years.
Joe Buck.
And carried on over to present times. And I think that's the big difference this year is that they've got depth everywhere. And we've seen, a couple of unfortunate injuries already in training camp, but I don't think it's going to kill them like it would be in the past. I used to feel sorry for Terry Heffernan, and he'd walk into his offensive line room the week of a game, and he'd see one guy, bandaged up, and another guy under the weather, and he just didn't have any answers who I'm going to play. He had to put somebody in there with no experience or out of position or something, and it showed. I mean, poor Anthony Calandria is still running for his life somewhere.
Right.
But, and so I think the depth and the experience, a lot of these guys have played 4, 5, 6, some of them even going into their 7th year of college football, believe it or not. It's like Animal House when the guy said, I love college. It's the best 7 years of my life.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard to beat guys with that kind of experience, and they've been in different programs and picked up different techniques and different kinds of knowledge and different kinds of coaching. So I think that those things alone are going to let them be more consistent, not only through training camp but all through the season.
Yeah. So you mentioned injuries. I think the biggest one that people were worried about is Cam Robinson, but then I also heard, or I don't know if I read or heard, but Hunter Osborne was a little banged up right now. Do you know anything more? I know the media hasn't. Well, they haven't had any updates, I guess, officially. But have you heard anything?
Just probably the same thing you have. Virginia's been very quiet about all this, and we were able to meet with the coordinators yesterday, but the injury thing didn't really come up. And normally we would have met with Tony Elliott by now, this soon after a scrimmage, but we won't get him until maybe Friday. I'm not sure, but I haven't heard anything else. So just the same thing that Cam's injury, we don't even know what it is. Could be he could be out for 3, 4, 5 games. I don't know. There's no way to confirm that until we talk to Elliott. Yeah, I heard a little rumor about Osborne that he had gotten dinged up, but I don't know to what degree. Hopefully, it's not too bad because they can't keep sustaining the injuries at this rate. That would negate all the depth that they've been able to build up.
Yeah, Jeff and I were saying we got to put them in bubble wrap till August 30th.
Yeah, you may have to.
What position battles have you been hearing the most buzz about, and where do they stand at right now?
Well, I think there's battles going on all over the place, and the coaches we talked to both coordinators yesterday. They weren't willing at this point to reveal any kind of a depth chart or who might be in the lead in any of those battles, but they're just saying that there's a lot of really good hard competition going on, and they're trying to. I think they want to wait until their second scrimmage before they come out with a 2 deep, because I'm not even sure they know right now if they had to put a team on the field tomorrow, who the starters would be. So, but I've been watching the running back battle. I think that's interesting. They got 4 guys who don't seem to be all that different in terms of ability. Certainly they're different body types and all that, but wide receivers is deep. They got 8 or 9 guys that are fighting for playing time, and offensive line, same. Defense has got the same deal with they brought in so many guys in the secondary after spring practice.
Right.
Yeah.
They're trying to separate themselves. So I think we're going to have to wait until the second scrimmage before we get a good picture about who's going to be in those starting lineups. We just saw a few plays before they threw us out of Saturday scrimmage.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Will they let y'all watch the second scrimmage, you think?
If they do, I hope they let us see more than they did the last time, because all we saw the other day was a few field goals and some kickoffs.
Yeah, I heard it was quick.
They really pulled the plug fast on us, faster than I can ever remember. So,
oh gosh.
I was told that who you saw out there during those few brief plays might not be the starters. It's just people they had earned that week a chance to go first. So I think we're all playing the guessing game right now.
Do you think they're worried about like leaking to Coastal or any other opponent for that matter? I mean, what do you gain? I guess. I mean, it's not like Virginia's Ohio State where there's hordes of national media there. They know you guys.
I think football coaches are just paranoid in general. Everybody that I've ever known as a football coach was paranoid, except for Bobby Bowden, and to me, that's the shining light on it all, because Bowden used to have every practice open all week, every game week. You could interview players up until the day before the game.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
he put together a dynasty. So
I say he was a winner.
if it didn't bother his, why would it bother anybody else?
Right.
I
Right.
think these guys are just so afraid that somebody's going to hear something, or they're going to send out a picture of a formation that they don't want Coastal or whoever the opponent's going to be to find out about. So it's I think it's a bunch of hooey myself, but I mean, Coastal's probably doing the same thing Virginia is, looking up all these guys through the 3 or 4 schools they've been to before and trying to figure out what their tendencies are.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
That's going to keep some people up late at night, I'll tell you that.
So what about, is there a position group that you have seen maybe had the biggest jump from last season? I'm guessing O-line, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'll be O-line, and I'm intrigued about the running backs as well. We saw flashes of Xavier Brown last year and what he could do, but I think he's got more in him if he can just stay healthy. And we keep hearing some of the coaches talk about how good Jamari Taylor is, that they think he's as good as anybody in the ACC. And then I talked to the kid from Wyoming yesterday, and he was impressive. He had a 70-yard touchdown at Texas when he was at Wyoming, and not many people do that against Texas, especially at Texas.
Right.
And he's like a 210-pound kid with good speed. So I think it took him a while to catch up in the system, and then they told us the other day that Noah Vaughn is coming on really strong. So to me, that how do you pick somebody out of those?
Right.
You going to rotate them and keep the legs fresh, or what are you going to do? And then the offensive line, I think, is, even though they've had a couple of injuries over at the right tackle spot, I still think they've got so much depth. They spent their money well. I think they've got a lot of guys that can play, and that's their intention, is to rotate guys to some degree. Probably not as much on the offensive line as they will the defensive line, but that goes back to what I was saying a little while ago about in years past, they wear down in the fourth quarter because the other team had depth and Virginia didn't, and it showed. And maybe that won't be the case this year, that they'll be able to hang in there and win some of these one-score close games in the fourth quarter that's held the program back for so long.
Right.
Yeah. So I think our center is probably locked in with the Brady Wilson, I believe was his name. Do you have a feel for the other spots? I guess Boley will be, Josie will be,
I think those guys will start. I don't know about the right side of the line. There's so many guys that are pretty much of equal ability, it sounds like. I think they knew until they had the injuries, but now I think it's up for grabs. But yeah, I think the center and the left side of the line is pretty solidified, unless somebody just comes out of nowhere and beats one of those guys out. I don't see that happening, because those guys are pretty good.
Yeah. With the secondary, like you talked about, got so many new pieces.
Too many.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line between being on the field and being third or fourth string, it looks like. I mean, have you heard the coaches? Are they talking more about – I've heard a lot about Platt, maybe being a guy that might start, but can you talk about some of those DBs and what you've heard from, maybe people in the program?
Well, they haven't really leaked very much. They just keep talking about the competition and how it's pretty intense, and that they're cross training these guys so they can play them at corner or safety. Some of them, and then or even in the nickel for some of them. So they haven't really given us much of a view yet. I think they will once we get into after this weekend. I assume they're going to have another scrimmage on Saturday, but I think after that it might clear things up a little bit because you're getting close to game week and you got to start narrowing things down. And I think it's going to be a lot of tough decisions, particularly in the secondary on who they like and who they feel like won't give up the big play, and who they can count on to come up in run defense and make some plays.
Yeah. I mean, I would think, some of these guys that maybe are a little banged up, they may be playing their way down the depth chart.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, who's playing their way up in practice. I don't know, but the injuries certainly probably aren't helping those guys that are dinged up with being so competitive, I guess.
Yeah, availability is the big key, and it's cost a lot of guys playing time and even starting jobs in the past couple of years where they just couldn't stay healthy enough to keep their position, and they'd have somebody move past them. Maybe not necessarily better, but again, healthy and available.
Right.
I think that's the big thing in camp. They're trying to get through it without having too many injuries that would set them back. But I'm as intrigued as you guys are to find out. Just give us some names,
right?
So we can start studying these guys a little bit more and try to form some kind of a depth chart in our head where we'll have an idea of who's going to play and who may come in relief.
Right.
Well, one position we know, I guess we know the depth chart is quarterback, Chandler Morris. So speaking of Chandler, what does he bring to the team that maybe, Calandria and other quarterbacks from last year did not bring?
Well, I think a bunch of things, Jeff. I think experience for one. I mean, he's been in this is his fourth program now. He was the starter on a team that ended up at the national championship, even though he got hurt early that season. But had he been fortunate, maybe he would have been playing in the championship game himself. But everything I've gathered from talking to Taylor Lamb and Des Kitchens and Tony Elliott and Morris himself, the kid got a really high football IQ. He's been through so many systems and learned from so many different coordinators and head coaches. He's got a good arm. He can make every throw. I think one of the big things we'll see with him is that I think he'll make better decisions than Calandria. He'll be less reluctant to get happy feet, and maybe he won't have to if the offensive line does what it's supposed to do, and allow him time to find his receivers. Allow those receivers to run their routes and actually get open instead of having to force a throw or a scramble. He can scramble if he has to, but he's not a Calandria when it comes to running the football. And hopefully for Virginia, he won't have to be because they'll have their own running game, which would take a little more pressure off of him because you can run your play action and do some things that will keep the defense guessing and on their heels. But I think he's just a really confident kid. I think he was born to be a quarterback. He's lived that life all 24 years, believe it or not. I think he's as old as a Redskins starting quarterback. But one thing that impressed me yesterday, I guess it was, we were talking to Des Kitchens, and they've been trying to I won't say totally mold their offensive playbook to him, but they're trying to make him feel as comfortable in that offense as they possibly can. So everything that they do, they ask him, if he likes it, if he doesn't like it, and he's not shy. He's not one of these guys that's afraid to tell the coaches, I don't want to do that. That doesn't fit my strength. This is something I really want to do and something I'm good at. And one of the cool things that Kitchens revealed to us was that, we'll be running a certain play and Chandler will say, hey, we ran something kind of like this at Oklahoma, but we did it this way. We made this little adjustment. And same thing at TCU. This play, we ran a version of this, but we ran it this way. And I like it this way better. And so they've fashioned a lot of those things around what he's comfortable doing and what he's good at doing, which to me should make this offense run a lot smoother than maybe we've seen some in the past. But I think they've got a winner there. The guy can throw it. What do you have, the almost 4,000 yards last year and the fourth highest touchdown pass number in the country behind Sanders and a couple of other guys who got drafted. So it's not too shabby.
Not at all.
It'd be nice to have a quarterback who's been there and done that instead of somebody doing on-the-job training.
All right. I'm with you.
And he's got a lot of weapons to throw to as well. I mean, you look at the wide receiver room, that's probably as deep as any position. I think most of the pub lately has gone to Cam Ross.
Yeah.
But Trell Harris, I think he's bound to break out as long as he can stay healthy. But I'm interested in what your thoughts are on the receiving class of the first years of Abdullah, Newton Short, and Isaiah Robinson. Do you think there's any chance they get some early run?
I think they probably will. It's been funny talking to the different offensive coaches, the different position coaches, and there's so many guys that have impressed at wide receiver that they sometimes forget and leave a couple of guys out themselves. I had 2 conversations with coaches that didn't even mention Trell Harris, and
oh wow,
he's in the mix. But they've mentioned the freshmen quite a bit, and I think they've actually been surprised at how good these guys have been. And it's going to be hard, I think, to keep some of them off the field, especially I think Robinson has really opened some eyes from what we've been told. And, there's just so many of them. I've talked to a few of them, and they're all very confident. They all get along well together. A lot of them can play all the 3 receiver spots. Even Twitty, the tight end, can play the other wide receiver spots and even the slot if he has to. And that kind of blows your mind for a tight end because they haven't had many guys like that. They're high on him. They think that he can play on Sunday if he can stay healthy and if he can become a good pass blocker, which it's something he's trying to, or not a pass blocker, but a run blocker, because he's having to take on bigger people at tight end than he would have out at wide receiver. But Trell Harris, I think he's been impressive. Talked to him the other day, and he feels like that he's just as good as he ever was if he can just stay healthy. And he's got such good speed. I think that's going to be something that's going to stretch defenses. And then Cam Ross has blown everybody away in camp. Everybody talking about that guy. And back in the spring, I don't think they really knew what they had in him because he was still trying to learn the system and just get acclimated to Virginia football. And during the summer in the passing drills with the quarterbacks, and then now early in training camp Well, I guess we're about halfway through it now, but he's just blowing people away, and with his ability to catch the ball and get open and do something with it after he catches it. So he's got some speed as well. And this being his 7th year of college football, there's probably very little he hasn't seen. So
Right.
I would think he could adjust to just about anything they throw at him. And if he's got some other guys that are demand attention too, and a tight end who will allow them to do some things that maybe they couldn't do the last couple of years, that could make this offense sparkle a little bit, because Tony likes it when he has a tight end in there that he doesn't have to make a massive lineup change for different plays. He can just keep the tight end in and make the defense keep their personnel out on the field and create some mismatches. And I think Twitty will help them do that. And if they can get that going, and that should help the other receivers get open, and that opens up a lot of things for Chandler Morris and his big arm.
For sure.
So you've covered so many Virginia football teams through the years, and a lot of great teams. Is there a past team that this year's group reminds you of in terms of talent, depth, or their personality?
Wow. This is my 44th year of covering Virginia. I think it's yet to be determined. It's just too early to tell. This team maybe has more depth. I'm not saying quality, but it probably has more depth than any of those Virginia teams from before, because even when George had it going well, he didn't have a lot of great depth at every spot on the field. But as far as just potential, this looks like, and the schedule certainly is favorable. It kind of reminds you of some of the early Al Groh teams. They don't necessarily have the NFL personnel that maybe Al had, but there's so much depth. I think it kind of makes up for some of that, because even Al, if he lost a really good starter, sometimes he didn't have a real quality replacement to put in there. But if this team can stay healthy, and if it's as good as advertised against that schedule, I think one of the huge keys is NC State, that second game of the season. If you can go into Raleigh, which isn't easy, no matter how good or bad State is, if you can go in there and steal one, you got a chance to be 4-0 with Florida State coming to town for a big Friday night game, which could have this fan base energized like it hasn't been in quite a while. So to me, that's a huge key to getting off to a great start and building a lot of momentum and confidence in a team that needs it, actually, because you got so many guys coming from all corners of the earth in here and trying to be a team, and if they can get some confidence rolling early, who knows what that might could do for these guys.
Yeah, you think about last year just being 2-0 with the win at Wake, and that Maryland game, same kind of situation, night game. It was pretty exciting. The crowd was pretty hype in the first half, and the performance didn't match the crowd output. But, Jeff, you said 44 years. That's impressive. First of all, I'm jealous. That's fantastic.
It's been a while.
So when you've covered the teams that have done really well and overachieved or just excelled, did you have a feeling before the kind of year started, like you could see it coming, and do you get that feeling? And we kind of talk about some of the positives, but do you have a feeling like that about this team?
Yeah, there were times over the years where you could kind of feel it. You knew you had a better grip on who the personnel was back then because um, you were allowed to get closer to the team. You got to know the players personally instead of just haphazardly. But um, so you knew what they were about. You could, uh, and the coaches. We got a lot of exposure with the coaches, and they would share things that most coaches nowadays would never tell media. But you could kind of feel it at times. There were certain years where you knew that uh, that team was the only way it was going to lose many games is if it beat itself, and which they didn't do very often back then. And because you'd have to face the wrath of George, nobody wanted that, and even grow to some aspect of that. Yeah, Grow could be a pretty hard customer when he wanted to be, uh, and but um, they were really good. They had so many good recruiters on those staffs, at least early on with Al, and mostly during George's 16 years. I think toward the end he started losing really good assistants, and it started to show up in the kind of recruits they were getting. Um, with Al, kind of the same. A lot of his early staff went on to become head coaches themselves. I think 5 or 6 of those guys, and so at some point recruiting suffered, and things tailed off for George and Al in the latter years. But yeah, you could tell, and it was easy to see just the quality of some of the starters they had. You knew a lot of these guys were going to be NFL players on either side of the football, and it's kind of hard to get a same kind of grip on this team right now because again, there's so many new people coming from so many different places that you're not that familiar with. You can read their stats and maybe see a small video clip of a couple of great plays they made wherever they came from, but it's it's hard to get that feeling right now because you want to think positive about it because they have potential to be really good, but it's hard to be confident in that until you actually see them uh, roll out on the field and play somebody else instead of themselves. And so I'd be reluctant to jump and say these guys are going to win 8 games or whatever until we get a better picture, better feel for what they're all about. There's certainly potential there, but they got to live up to that.
That's right. And so, from your perspective, is Tony Elliott's job security impacting recruiting, you think, or is it just, I know they're a little more methodical in their approach to how they give offers?
Well, it's going to be interesting, Jeff, and what happens with college football in the next 12 months. There's so many proposals on the table about with Trump's executive order, the NCAA's proposal, the committee's proposal. Uh, we don't know who's going to, what rules are going to be accepted and what the rules are going to be. Some people have said we're going to go back to the way it was before, and you can transfer once without penalty, and that will stop a lot of the jumping around because guys aren't going to, if they can't jump year to year, it's not going to be worth it because the eligibility will be impacted. That the NIL, there'll be a cap on it or something, and so you won't be able to do like Texas Tech and Carolina and Virginia and go out and spend millions and millions of dollars and buy a football team, everybody will be kind of going back to the way it was, and which will place more emphasis on high school recruiting, which has been hurt significantly, I think, from the NIL. So I guess we're going to have to find out what rules we're playing by before we can predict what's going to happen down the road. But what was your original question?
Well, no.
Sorry for me going off on a tangent.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I was just wondering. I know his class, like for 26, is still, it's still growing, but a little bit smaller. If you think there's any impact to maybe his job security or his job security impacting some of that recruiting?
Well, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm still been trying to get a gauge on what the fan base will accept as a successful season this year. Is it 6-6 and going to a bowl game for the first time in since 2019, I guess, or is it 7-5 and beating Tech? Is it 8-4 no matter who you beat? Right. I don't know. What would be acceptable to you guys? I've talked to a lot of people, and they said even 7-5 is not good enough for them with this schedule. I don't know.
7-5, but you got to beat Tech. Is, I mean, that's I can forgive a lot if you beat Tech.
I think most people would be happy with that. Some say no, not again with the schedule. It should be no less than 8, but it's tough because there's a lot of 50-50 games you got to win in there. But so if he's 6-6 and goes to a bowl game and who knows, wins it or loses it, is that going to be enough might be enough for the AD to keep him.
Right.
But it depends on how much pressure she's under from the heavy hitters, and are they going to be satisfied as the fan base? Our fans, if they win 6 or 7 games, are fans going to come to the games? It almost to me seems like that they're going to have to win for 2 or 3 seasons in a row to get fannies back in the seats to what would be acceptable, up in the 40,000s or more on a consistent basis. But it's going to be interesting to see what factors play into him retaining his job, and recruiting is certainly part of it. And their high school recruiting in the last couple of years hasn't been very good. I think it's been a little better than it is on paper, where some of their classes haven't been ranked very high nationally. But I learned from George Welsh and Al Groh a long time ago that they don't give a crap about the star system and all that stuff. It's the passing the eye test. Does this guy fit what we're looking for in a right tackle? Does this guy fit what we're looking for in a defensive end or a running back or a tight end or a corner? We think he can play for us and be effective. We don't care if he's a 2-star or a 4-star. We've seen some 4 stars and 5 stars.
Oh yeah,
many of them come in here, but we've seen a couple of them come in here and just become busts. And then we've seen some guys like Chris Canty, who was hardly even looked at in high school and ends up playing for a long time in the NFL just because he passed Al Groh's eye test. He liked his knee bend. He liked his athleticism, that he could play more than one sport. So, but I think they've had some kids that weren't rated very high in the star system who've turned out to be some pretty good football players. I think it's better in reality than it is on paper, and you got to give him some credit for that. So, but there's so many. They keep moving the goalposts every couple of months, and we just don't know what it's going to be like down the road in terms of recruiting, and are they going to have to put more emphasis on high school, or is it still going to be NIL? Or we're going to empty the bank vault to bring in another team, and because a lot of these guys are going to be gone in months.
Yeah,
we hardly knew you.
That's right.
Hopefully it goes back to some kind of normalcy, because I don't like this, and I'm sure as fans you guys don't like it either. I mean, it takes you the whole season to get to know who the team is, and then they're gone.
Yeah,
I want to win, of course, but it's hard to even keep up with who the players are.
Yeah.
And back in the day, you could keep up, like, the guys, and they're there for 3 years, 4 years, and now it's like, you need that media guide with all the numbers and who's who anymore.
I've been studying this chart with 125 names on it all week, and still some guys I don't know who the heck they are.
I can imagine.
It seems, honestly, like I feel like the fan base has been a little bit more negative before the season even starting. Like right now, I feel like the fan base is almost a little more negative. I feel like it's a little bit unfair to Coach Elliott. I mean, I know he's, even he will say he hasn't done enough on the field. But I wrote an article today, and it was titled "Virginia, the Dark Horse CFP Candidate You Should Have Seen Coming," and it sounds crazy, but when you really look at it, last year I think we led in 9 out of 12 games. With a team that I don't think that team last year is within 2 scores of the team, maybe 3 scores of the team we have right now, just based on what they've done in the past. The schedule is more than manageable. I mean, if you beat NC State, these are all big ifs, and I didn't predict this to happen, but how crazy is it to say, you know what, magical things happen in sports every year. Could this be a magical type of season?
We've seen some unbelievable things happen at Virginia during my 44 years, just things you could have never imagined. And you never know. I mean, the fact that you can go out and buy 30-some players. I mean, look what Indiana did last year, and look what Arizona and some other teams did. Nobody saw that coming. And so you're right. I mean, if these guys can click, and one of the things that's held Virginia back all 3 years, and it's tough for Tony, but because the offense just hasn't been what people expected it to be. Probably not what he expected it to be, especially coming from where he was and what he was able to accomplish as a play caller and a coordinator. And that's been what's held Virginia back. They just can't produce points, and they can't be effective in the red zone. And they've been just atrocious at both of those things. And that shouldn't be the case this year.
Right.
They've got an experienced quarterback who knows how to get in the end zone. They've got 4 healthy running backs at least. They have an offensive line that looks like it could dominate the line of scrimmage. They got great receivers and a good tight end, again, which Des Kitchens and Tony Elliott both have said, for their offense to really click, they need a tight end who can stay on the field. And so I think these guys should be able to put some points on the board. And I don't think they'll get bogged down in the red zone like they have in the past, because they should be able to run the ball. And, I mean, how many times in some of those close games, guys, did we see over the last couple of years where they'd have a first down inside the 10-yard line and just couldn't go anywhere?
Right.
And
Finish up missing about a 45-yard field goal because they backed up 20 yards.
Exactly. Key penalty, dumb penalty, run 2 plays and rushing plays and gain nothing.
Yeah.
Then have to throw it on 3rd down out of desperation, and they knew it was coming. And I mean, I just don't see that happening this year. I think they'll be able to move the ball inside the 10 and inside the 5, and if they get a first down at the 3, they can punch it in for a change instead of, like you say, and having to settle for a field goal or giving the ball up again. But if they can solve that part of the puzzle, who knows? They could win 8, 9. You know, people are going to laugh at me for saying that, but you know, stranger things have happened. If you've got today's football is all about offense. If you can put points on the board, there's no limit to what you can do. You could win 8 or 9 games, and you could upset some people. And who's to say that some of these other teams who have brought in hordes and hordes of players are that the chemistry is going to be there. Look what happened to Florida State last year.
Right.
They were coming off a 13-win season, and they won 2 games with all those new players. Sometimes it just doesn't work, and sometimes it does. And maybe this is one of those times where it all comes together, and there's no way to predict that. I don't care how much college football you know. There's some things you can't explain sometimes. That some guys just click. They have a magical year, and they take everybody else along for the ride. And wouldn't that be fun? I mean, God, it's been a long time since we've seen that. Bryce Perkins, man. Look what Bryce Perkins. Nobody even knew who the hell Bryce Perkins was when he got here, and look what he did. I mean,
right.
Who knows? Who knows?
So Coastal's coming in on the 30th, and I hear they envy the amount of returners we have on our roster because I think they got 60-some new players to our 50-some. But
yeah.
Do you know anything about them?
I know they have new coordinators, especially a defensive coordinator, I think. I'm not sure about the offensive guy. I think he might have been there last year. But I know that Kitchens told us the other day that the new defensive coordinator's number one priority is stopping the run. So that's something that they're going to be tested on early. But, you know, it could turn into a mismatch just like it did last year down at Coastal, and things just got totally out of control. And if you can jump on somebody like that early, you can make it an easy win. And you know, it'll be interesting to see how Coastal reacts coming in here and knowing that they got soundly beaten last year, and could be a pretty exciting environment. A night game, the first game of the season, could be a lot of people in the house, hopefully, for a change. And if Virginia gets some momentum going early, that it might not be much of a to worry about at the end. So I'm expecting Virginia to win that game, maybe easily, but I'm sure Coastal has other things in mind. And but I think they were picked like 3rd in their division, so I don't know. They have a lot to prove, but I just think Virginia is going to maybe overwhelm them with the amount of talent that they're going to put out on the field.
I think it would go a long way.
Depth, because I don't know that Coastal has any depth either.
Yeah, and I think a good win, you know, solid, you know, fairly large, you know, score in the 40s at least win would do a lot to quail some of the negativity that, because it only takes seeing the team perform once. It doesn't even matter who the opponent is. You know, you see them on the field and they look good. That would do a lot for the fan base, I think.
Yeah, I do too, and probably for the student body, you need them to show up in force because they make all the noise. And, yeah, you know, there's been so much apathy around the program for a while now that it would be nice to see that flip this year and start to get some interest back in the program. I think they're trying to do what they can to put more fannies in the seats with some different packages and some different pricing on tickets, and which I don't know what took them so long to do that, but at least they're doing it now. And yeah, if they can win that first game and again go down and still won it in Raleigh, they could it could be kind of fun the next couple of weeks, especially when Florida State gets here.
That's right.
So if you had to set a range, the ceiling and the floor for this team for wins, what would you say?
I just can't see this team failing. I think there's just too much talent, too much money invested, too much hard work put in by the coaching staff because, I know fans are not satisfied, but nobody wants to win more than those coaches do. They pour their lives into it, and it's year round. I just can't see this team failing. I don't think there's any way they'll do any less than 6-6. I think that's the floor. The ceiling, I want to say 8 games, but who knows if they can do some damage early. The tail end of the schedule is much kinder than it was a year ago when they were facing a murderer's row of top 25 teams, a bunch of college football playoff teams at the end when you really had no chance of winning.
Right.
They've got chances now because there's a lot of teams that they're going to face that probably aren't going to have a very high ceiling, in my opinion. That they've unless something magical happens with them. I mean, look, I know Stanford has a new coach and a new GM and Andrew Luck and Frank Reich, but Andrew Luck called him in the Costco. He was buying strawberries at Costco when he called him and said, "Hey, I need your help. Can you help?" I mean, that doesn't sound like, maybe down the road that might be effective.
Right.
But that doesn't sound too good for the immediate future.
No.
Cal is not predicted to do well, even though they were like Virginia. They lost so many close games last year. But they have a new AD who's formerly NFL and it's going to be pretty demanding. I think Wake Forest is not in for a good year. Washington State had a complete coaching turnover, and they're not predicted to do too well. So even NC State was 6-7 last year and lost to East Carolina in the bowl game. The biggest thing they got going for them in the Virginia game is that it's in Raleigh, I think.
Right.
Then you got Coastal and William and Mary. So there's a lot of games on there where you can't just totally dismiss Virginia's chances of winning. And so if they can win early and get some momentum and confidence going, and traverse a couple of tough games in there, like at North Carolina, we still don't know what in the world's going to happen down there with Belichick. That's one of the biggest stories in college football in my mind is, can he do it?
Yeah.
And we don't know what kind of Florida State team is going to show up. Are they going to be the 23 team or the 24 team, or we just don't know. But and then even the Hokies, they're not the Frank Beamers of years ago, and there's more pressure on that staff than there is on this staff, for sure. So if Virginia's ever going to beat them again, this would be the time, because it's here, and I don't think there's any gap in the talent of those two programs anymore. Not, at least not this year. I remember Tony Elliott telling us at the end of last year that the big problem he saw, the big difference he saw between Virginia and Virginia Tech was that Tech had a lot more playable depth. Well, that's not the case this year. Virginia's got just as much or maybe more. So, again, if you're ever going to beat them again, this would be the time to do it. And it would be a really good time to do it for Tony Elliott, too.
It sure would.
Absolutely.
Last question. What is UVA's final record this season?
Oh, wow. If I had to put $1 million down on it today, I would slap down 7-5.
Okay.
And be able to live with that. It may be too high, may be too low. I don't know, but and I think either could happen. But I think that would be the safe bet. I know all the over and unders I see are 6.5. Used to be 6, I think, but I think 7-5 is a safe bet, and I would think most people would be pretty happy with that because it's been a while since they've done it.
Yeah,
it sure has.
I tell you, Jeff's hoping for 7-5. He told his kids if they didn't hit the 7-win mark, there wouldn't be a Christmas this year. If you get me.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh well, Jerry.
I know what your family's rooting for then.
Yeah, they're for it. They just want the house to be happy, though.
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, we really appreciate your time. So much knowledge, and we really appreciate you coming on and sharing with all the listeners what we can expect for this upcoming Virginia football season. And I know we're excited. We can't wait. Two more weeks from Saturday, I guess, and we'll be back at it.
Yeah, I'm tired of writing about the preseason. I want to write about some games.
Yeah, sure.
Something meaningful, but I always enjoy talking to you guys. You're very knowledgeable and ask great questions, and hopefully I gave you some decent answers. And thanks for having me, and I hope your listeners gain something out of it.
They definitely will.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jerry. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you guys. We'll see you around.
Yeah, we will. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thanks. That was a pleasure to talk to Jerry tonight, Jay. I know we've set off the air. I love talking to Hootie. He's a good one. So much
as good as it gets. This week, I mean, it don't get a whole lot better than this week with having Jackie and Hootie in the same week. And I know we got some not bigger, but some big guests coming up as well, that are, going to be fun to talk to as well. So I'm looking forward to those. But, man, Hootie's a national treasure, if you ask me.
Sure.
Love reading his stuff and watching his Tuesday show with Jerry Miller on X.
Yeah, for sure. And we thank him for coming on. And always, I know you mentioned it after Jackie's episode. Same with Jerry. He's so gracious with his time. And he always tells you if you need anything, if he can help you in any way, let him know. And he's definitely been very kind and helpful and a treat to talk to. So we thank him for his time and for coming on. And as you said, Jay, more to come. And that's going to wrap this one up. Go Hoos.
Go Hoos.